Hey everybody, how you doing? Good. Hope everyone's well. Gals and guys, everybody's welcome. Your puppies, your kitties. Hey, I woke up to the Tata Steel Chess Championship tournament going on right now. And two of my favorite chess commentators, International Master Jovanka Huska and Danya Naroditsky, were being the commentators on this game, on all of the games. I believe this was round three that was played, and it was played a couple of days ago, but they're just now putting it on television. And I wanted to comment on this game. Now, I'm taking some of their comments and analysis because they are so much more in depth. I'm going to try this on this board. The disadvantage is I have to reset up the position after I show you several of the different interesting and fascinating variations. So I've taken pictures of the position at the critical point on my telephone so that I can reset it up. Hopefully this will work. Hopefully you can understand the ideas. You let me know in the comments whether you like it this way or if I need to do this with electronics. Now, Nordibek is playing the black and Parham is playing the white. Parham is the stronger one, and he is the favored one to win. So let's see how this game goes. It was an incredibly fascinating game. It was fun to see the commentators get blown away by some of the moves. It was delightful to hear some of their analysis. It was really interesting to see how intricate this game really got in a championship here. And now Nordibek pushes this pawn here. Now, this is interesting. This gambit, Naroditsky said this gambit, he's lost to it a lot. So Nordibek comes out swinging. He's come out prepared to win. He's in it for the money. He wants this game to be won. Here's the issue with this, and I've written this down in a note, D4 pawn gambit. The idea here is this pawn, and he bumped to G5, but look at that, man. Both knights are hitting that pawn. Now, and this isn't just any pawn. This is one of the central pawns, so you don't want to lose that if you can help it, and yet there it is. There's no way you're going to save it, right? The theme is this helps black with a speedy development. Let's see how this works. Here, he's going to play C6. And he is definitely preparing for the D5 central push, right? So, after the knight takes the pawn, let me make sure I do this right. The knight will take the knight. The knight will take the knight. We're having a good exchange. And here comes D5. And sure enough, the pawn will take the pawn, and the pawn will take the pawn. And now, once again, the knight has to move to a good square, G3. Now, at this point, if I've written this right, black is going to come to H5 immediately with the idea of pushing to H4, and ironically, that traps the knight. White, if he's not careful, is going to find himself a piece down right now. And the crazy thing is, if he just does the natural move and he comes to H4, then black is going to bring the bishop out and hit the knight again and cause more issues and problems for white. Now, the amazing thing about this is white is not very well developed. He's not in a very good position to develop. He's got problems to solve. And black is going to be able to get his pieces out and castle and develop super fast. White's not even ready yet to begin to even try to castle, let alone bring any of his pieces out, because he has pawn moves to do first. For every pawn move white has to do, black's going to get another piece out. And his only piece is not very well placed, and it is under attack. So that is quite the interesting gambit that Nordibek threw out so fast. Let me put this position back the way it's supposed to be real quick, and we'll carry on with the game. So this is quite the process that we have here. Very, very interesting lineup of ideas. And the theme that is so amazing is at this point, White's doing okay. He's just got to be careful not to fall. Let me delete that picture so I don't go back to it accidentally. I'll go to my next picture so I can put the next one in. At this point, White's okay if he plays it correctly. Knight g5, and he does do c6 anyway, because the idea is to get a strong center and a speedier development. However, White counters the gambit in a really interesting way. Rather than playing the four knights defense, the normal move is to bring the fourth knight out. He brought his two knights out, he brought his knight out, then bring your knight out, but instead he went c6. Because of that, one of White's good responses is queen a4. And that's what we saw him do. And then he'll come to queen e7. And now he does directly hit that pawn on the E. The E will exchange with the F. And instead of exchanging with the pawns, ruining his pawn structure, he exchanges with the knight. Yeah, it bumps the knight back a little bit, but it's okay. He's on his natural square. He's ready to romp. G6, we're going to see a fianchetto, and sure enough, now we can see White is getting a really decent center, right? Black isn't too bad at this point because, of course, he's got this fianchetto. He is kind of trying to control the center from a distance rather than directly occupying it with pawns and pieces. So this will be a terrific game. And again, another pawn move. Now, this is important because it really leads to some interesting middle game complications. And I do believe Nordibek saw this. He went ahead and castled. He said, all right, let's get the king tucked away because here it comes. And he was right. Here it comes. Watch what White does now. And this is so interesting because it's the London. He plays the London with him. Bishop f4. And it's at this point that the commentators did a good job. I took their notes so that I could get it. This is a very sharp variation, very sharp opening for this reason. And if you're playing black, you really want to pay attention to stuff like this. He's shooting to go to here. Now that's a skewer, right? In a championship game, you can't afford to have that skewer occur. And yet White has taken the last couple of moves as pawn moves, which more or less is against, it's not stellar opening strategy. You want to move your pieces more than pawns, and yet we've seen in a championship game more pawn moves than pieces. But what a play, what a potential, right? So the question White puts to black in bringing up the London bishop is, how are you going to protect yourself, right? This is what is very important. What is even more fascinating to me is Nordibek's response. If you watch my videos, you'll probably understand what I'm about to say and show you, because this is so important. I'm serious. That That was his move. He ignored the threat. And you go, wow, look what it does. It brought a piece out. Okay. Nordibek is counting on development to help strengthen his game, right? He's not going to just react to every threat. Now, from my point of view, and probably from a lot of you guys, that's not just an idle mamby-pamby threat. That's a real deal. And that is the movie played. And now you're going, crap. What? Now what? Right? You kind of got to go, man, he really did do that. Nordibek finds e3 for his queen. Now, that is a stab into White's territory, isn't it? That's really good. That's not bad at all. And the amazing thing about this, and I do believe I've got a comment, is this the setup I've got? Yes, it is. I think so. Oh, did I miss a comment? Yeah, the idea also with ignoring this threat. That's the other thing. I'm glad I wrote it down because I don't want to miss this because it's really important for later on in the game. One reason that makes the queen thrust seem so powerful, and again, and I've said this in a lot of videos, and we've seen this in a lot of games, the queen alone can't win the game, right? And sincerely, Black's not developed enough to be attacking with the queen. However, if he gets a knight coming up to g4, he could get a strong attack going fairly quick, right? So perhaps that's what Nordibek was thinking. So anyway, neither here nor there at this point. What we have now, if I didn't lose my place, he castled. One of the best moves for real in the game, it got an exclamation point, is knight d1. And you know, for Pete's sake, he went backwards. He's back at the first rank, but he does hit the queen. Now, the queen doesn't have a lot of options that are going to be safe to move to. And there really is a lot of issues here. And again, I'm going to go to my notes. Here is the issue. And I'm going to have to reset this up a couple of times because already, and we're only on move, what move are we on? 12 moves, and this game is seriously super complex. And the commentators were saying, well, what if this, or what if that, what if this, and what if that? That's what I've written my notes down. I want to show you their comments to give you the feel for the exquisite excitement of this game. So they asked first, what if queen comes to e4? Is that I mean, for Pete's sake, if you're going to come this far, and I think we can all agree, really, truly, this is just way too passive, right? You don't have anything in the field, right? But the problem is you're underdeveloped. Yeah. And so you have to find a safe place for your only developed piece, which for you, unfortunately, is the most powerful piece. So, of course, you must expect she's going to be targeted like crazy. Yeah. Okay, so let's test this. Is queen e4 a good option? Let's take a look. The trick here is then if the bishop takes the rook, and the bishop takes the bishop. And now the knight takes c5, you're in trouble. Because it undermines your bishop. It takes away that central bishop pawn island that is so powerfully into your opponent's side. And you go, wait, just take it. No, you can't because the queen is in danger. So that's what you could run into if you put the queen on 4, right? So that doesn't work. So let me put this back because they go to another option that is also really kind of interesting to see. And we shall put these back in proper order, I hope. It's there. There. Do I have everything correct? Yes, I do. I do believe I do. Oh, no, no, no. I've got it. Where'd the white knight go? White knight went to d4. All right, to d1, I mean. Okay, so that's one option. That doesn't work. So queen to e4 is not safe. The other idea here is white can also come down to b3 with the idea of coming over and exchanging the queens. And I love what Naroditsky said. He said, oh man, that'd be the dream position. That'd be the dream thing for white to do right now. Exchange queens. Black, there's no way if you're black you want to change your queen. It's the only piece out here that's worth much. The development, the position of white is so vastly good compared to black that the exchange of queens would only favor white. So that's another option. And that is kind of cool to understand. It's why we like learning how to read the board position, because you can see that nothing is past the third rank except the queen. So, and his development is lacking. He is castled, that's true, but there's no real central power. White dominates the center, so exchanging queens in this situation is an extremely good play for you. It could be, I'll put it that way. And the other option, which is really interesting because they were using the computer with the adjustment bar. Oh, that move makes white stronger. Oh no, that move makes black stronger. While they were looking at this, one of the very best moves here is e3, because that locks in the power of the center. And it's absolutely granite because, and that's such a weird spot for that knight. Yeah, I get that. No joke. D1, come on. And yet that knight holds the entire position of white together. Isn't that interesting? Who would have ever guessed that a lowly knight on D1 of all squares could really hold your whole position together? The E3 was the one that the computer liked the best. Now, here's the other issue that also makes this exquisitely interesting. White is not forced to take the rook, right? So if queen did come to e4, for the moment, she's fine. But why take the rook? All right, yeah, you're up the exchange, but look at what your bishop is doing to black's position and the power. That bishop is just buried. That means the rook can't be played either. And isn't it fascinating that that bishop also dominates the knight? The entire queen side of black is locked in by that bishop. That's pretty impressive. So why take that away just for rook when you can almost develop all of your army out here together, and you know 3 of black's pieces aren't going to make it to the battle? So that's worth considering. There's no forcing of exchanges, and that's a very important point. In fact, one of the other options that they talked about was, if you did go to e3, and let's say black makes some kind of a move, the bishop taking the knight with the pawn coming up still keeps the black queen side all locked up. And so it doesn't matter. The e3 pawn push is by far one of your best options. Black is not doing very good right now. It seems like white has all of the calling cards. That's a really important point to understand in this particular position. So let me go back. And that was all just speculation on their part. They were trying to figure out, where do we put the queen? We know you're not going to put it back at e8. So which square? You can't go anywhere along here. You can't come there, and you can't go there very much. They did talk about h6 a little bit as a potential option, but it's not bad. It's probably not the best. What he did end up doing is coming back to e6. Queen came to e6. Let me make sure I've got my, yeah, and I was on comment number 4. So queen e6, I'm right there. So now one of the potential options was a knight move as well for white. By far, the best move is that e3 pawn dump push here. But he went to knight d2. Sorry. Where was he? Yeah, he went to knight d2. No, he went to knight. Oh, no. Sorry. He went to knight f2. And that was questionable. Now, can you see why it's questionable? We were pontificating on, if you were black, you should be worried about your queenside development, right? Because you have to develop speedily. You're not playing a pansy. This guy is one of the very best. I mean, they're in the candidates tournament, right? You don't get there by being a punk. So this is critically bad. The issue is, by bringing in f2, how are you going to develop your king side? Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? Now, how do you get your bishop out? How do you castle? And technically speaking, your knights aren't all that placed. Now, they are poised for greatness, but you need to get to greatness, not just prepare for it and keep preparing for it, and then shoot yourself in the foot by closing down your own king side. That's the defect of knight to f2. This is a very instructive moment. It would have been far better. And I agree, the knight d1 was a great move, provided he pushed e3. Had he pushed e3, then you could take that, and it would not alleviate the queenside problems of black, but then you could castle, and you're home free. But that's what he didn't do. And so the issue is a pretty... He gave himself more difficulty than he needed to, is what this comes to. And now rook e8. He decides, okay, I'm not going to give it to you. And interestingly now, rook e8, now h comes to 4. He bumps the h4, and he will hit that pawn. He's going to go ahead and hit that pawn chain. This hampering, the crazy thing is that bishop is in such a superb spot right there in the center, and it's preventing his development, so it's worth attacking. So here we go. So he's got to undermine that as much as he knows how. In the meantime, here comes white. Knight g5. Hit the queen. Very interesting what is going on. Queen is going to come to f5 now. And then notice the rook has the partial open file, and he's across from the king. The queen will come down to f5. And now one of the coolest moves in the game shows up. What would you do? It's not something I would have done. Now, and I showed this to you just the other night in one of my other chess games that I made a video of. This has happened again in the candidates championship. G4. Kablam. So obviously, white is not going to castle on the king side. The nice thing for him is he really does have the option of castling on the queen side. It's a little looser, it's a little bit more open, but look at the power of the pawns. Throw them up there as missiles, shooting down that queen. Now, what do you do? Now it's getting really important. And I do believe I have another comment here. Yeah, as they were looking at it, the commentators asked, okay, but isn't that a free pawn? And this is how good these grandmasters are, our modern grandmasters. This is just so amazing what they see on this chessboard. I never saw it, but here's what she saw. She said, I see a free pawn, so let's test it. Let's see if that would be viable. I see a free pawn. Take it with the 9. However, it's very interesting that if that was to happen, bishop h3 is not an option. It's tempting, but it's not an option because it hangs the knight. You see, the queen can come down here and take the knight. And now you're in real trouble, right? So scratch the bishop move. Bishop ain't going to hack it. So the next question is, how about if we go knight takes knight? I hope I'm not going to mess this up. And then queen takes knight. So white is going to go to queen bishop 3, and then he's going to castle this way because he has got to get the king out of there. This has opened up completely. So you do have to castle on the queen side. That's going to be very, very necessary. So that's the only option white has. And bringing his queen down to b3 is going to help keep his eye on this one. So the other advantage that queen b3 does, let me show you this one too, is it hits the f7 pawn. And that is not going to be easy to defend at all. For instance, if in this instance, queen comes to b3, and you do have to try to protect the f7, then now you've got the bishop to h3. Before the knight was hanging, you couldn't make the bishop to h3 move, but now you can. And now what are you going to do with the queen? Right? So it's a very interesting, tense conundrum of a possible variety of responses that he could do. And what we want to see is, what did he do? Oh, I hope I'm on the right picture. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one I want. This is the one I've got. So this is the one I'm going to go with. 2 pawns here, the bishop back here, the queen here, the knight behind. That's all good. Here, definitely. The rook and the queen up to here. Okay, so this is the position that we were at when g4 was played. So rather than being able to take the pawn, we saw that didn't work. If we let white come to here, this is going to be a very tough target to protect from white. Just seems like white's in the driver's seat and he's still putting pressure on, guess what piece? The queen, because she was the one that's out there. In the meantime, he has good power over here. He has maintained his incredible center, and now he has good power on this side, backed up by the rook. I mean, what if you keep pushing that pawn, right? What if you sacrifice the knight over to here and push that pawn and open up the king side? So it seems like white is dominating on all sides. And unfortunately, Black still can't develop his queenside. This is a really important point to see this. So what do? You come to queen d5. Okay, a safe spot for the queen for the moment. And now he does castle. He castles immediately, says, yeah, let's get the king out of here. And like I say, it's somewhat of it's a loose side, that's true, but it gives the rook excellent support of that pawn. He still hasn't pushed the e3, and he still hasn't got his bishop out yet. And now his own rook is hanging, except for the knight. His rook isn't hanging, sorry. I lied, so sue me. So what's he do now? Well, this is interesting because now b takes c5. Castles, and b takes c5, and this is questionable. So here's what happens. Black is trying to open his queenside so that he can finish his development. It's somewhat cramped because of that powerful center, that bishop, right? So you got to attack it. You attack the support of the bishop. However, he responds, and his bishop pawn combo remains there. And now we have a discovered attack on the queen. The rook's hitting the queen. What do you do? So your only real piece that has motility, whatever you want to call it, is just running out of squares to go to. So he says, all right, let's try it this way. Notice how neatly he has undermined the support of that bishop, which is causing all of his problems, the black pieces. Let's swap queens again, is what he's saying. How does white respond? Now, through a discussion and an analysis, which once again I'm going to give you, the very best move, and of course he's doing this over the board, is queen a3. That's the very best move that he can do, because queen will come to c4. It looks like it saves the queen, and the queen moves to c4 with tempo. Check on the king. So once the king moves out of the way, then you've got this incredible, amazing e4. And sorry, they said the knight will come down. You can still even do that, and the queen is trapped. That's amazing. That's one of the downsides to bringing out your queen so early. And the other issue is he still can't get his queenside developed. That's a big deal in this game. So we've got issues here that has given us some very interesting pause. He comes to c2. Queen comes to c2 instead. Let me jump back to my notes, because now this is going to get good. And the worry, put the king in the wrong spot. The worry is the queen taking the a2. That is what happened. The queen takes the a2, and now the bishop takes the pawn, or the knight takes the c5. So black, in attempting to get his queenside active, comes to rook b8, but that doesn't do a lot. He will come to b4 once again, solidifying that bishop and maintaining that eye right into the black camp. So white is doing an absolutely superb job with this bishop, isn't he? I mean, that is astonishing. And now the question that they were asking at this point, putting the queen to a1 and the queen coming down to b and exchanging the queens is realistically probably going to end in a draw. But Parham did not want to draw. He's in this to win. White wants to win this. So when he sees queen a3 check, this is good. So the question is, when you want to win and when you've seen black have such problems getting developed so that you've been able to spread your power across the board decently, evenly, do you want to exchange the queens? No, you do not. No, keep the queens on the board, get the king out of the way. So this is what we're seeing here. And now the move that sets up everything that turns the game. And the commentators were just blown away at this change of events. Knight d5. Great outpost, centrally posted, superb knight. This is a game-changing move. Now, here's the crazy thing. I've got this in my notes somewhere. Parham is running out of time, the white player. The black player, Nordibek, he has like 12, 13 minutes. Parham's down to about 1:38. So he's in time trouble already. And we're only on move 21, 22, something like that. So this is a very important moment because he really needs to figure this out. This is getting complex. And what he does, now part of the problem is that the queen is too close to the king. And I've said that in previous videos. I've said, if you want to attack the king, you have to put your pieces close to the king. So what Parham does is he bumps his rook up to h3 and he tells the queen, you got to go. Now, at this point, simply because of the nature of the row and this pawn right here that's preventing the queen from going very much anywhere, there's hardly anywhere to go that's safe. Not there, just there. And that's not much of a square to be able to do anything with, right? So you're in kind of a lot of trouble, and Nordibek comes up with the move of the year. And Naroditsky said this will be a candidate for the move of the year. This is going to be talked about for a long time. Nope. You do not have to do a passive defensive move and get your queen out of danger. You counterattack. This is a fabulous example of a counterattack. And it makes perfect sense because that's what an open file's for, right? That's why you want to put your rooks on the open files, right? That's why you want to use those open files. Fantastic. Mwah! Magnifico. Yeah, what a move. And now here I've got a couple of extra notes that I want to, hold on, let me make sure that I've got the right picture so that I don't mess this up. Okay, now I've got the picture so I can reset it up. This is so good. What happens here? Rook h3, of course, is threatening the queen. He comes and blocks. The whole point, because he's been so far behind in development, and therefore lagging in the game, it's white that has had most of the tactics. But he did make a critical error in moving the knight to f2 instead of the pawn to e3, and now it's haunting him. Now it catches him. Now, of course, he didn't know it while he was playing it. He will learn from this game. What this does is it buys black time. And this is what is so important. How they analyze the various ways that white can deal with this enormous, this got 2 exclamation points. This is a brilliancy move. It's why I wanted to show you this game. What if white says, okay, but I can handle it? Yeah, great move, but don't start cheering just yet because I think I can handle the problem. I've got a bishop up here. I can take the rook. However, now black would bring the bishop in. That long diagonal fianchettoed bishop is invaluable in the middle game or toward the end games. That's why we keep trying to play chess fianchettoing the bishops, because in time they become invaluable. And you go, well, that's not that big a deal. The queen can't take it because it's covered by the knight. It is covered by the queen, but the knight would retake. So you can't take it. But it's not a big deal because the king can just come up to here. But then the problem is, kablam. There's that knight. This is why the knight to d5 was such a stellar move a few moves back. Because now it can jump into the attack of the king. And that's a great fork on the king and the queen. So that tells us that there is no way you're just not going to be able to take the rook with the bishop. Okay, so that rules out the bishop. He's got his bases covered. Nordibek. What if we go here, though? What if we take it with the rook? Does that help us? So he makes a great move. Oh, yeah. So what? I can take it with the rook if the bishop won't work. However, the knight will take the rook. And now the bishop can't take the knight, because if the bishop takes the knight, we then have queen takes b4, check. And notice that the king can't dodge away behind because he's got the diagonal covered with the queen. So king has to come to d3. And then the bishop, a6, checkmate. Finally, at the very end of the game, the bishop who's been locked in would get to deliver the checkmate. Ironic, isn't it? He'd been trying this whole game to free up his queenside. So it doesn't look good for the idea that this rook stymies everything about the attack. He can't seem to get rid of that cotton picking rook. So what do you do in this instance? Oh, and that's the other thing I wanted to tell you. They also made this announcement when they were looking at these various analysis. Parham only has 7 minutes to make 17 moves. In other words, white is in trouble time-wise. You know, it's like playing speed chess with the devil, is how Nordibek put it. So you don't have time to analyze and think through all the variations. And I do believe Nordibek has like 7.5, 8 minutes left, if I remember right, at this point of the game. So Nordibek's doing really, really good. He's comfortable. No, he had 12 minutes, I believe. And so there's some real problems here. So what he did was the knight f to e4, but the problem is he moved the wrong knight. But again, he is under such incredible time pressure that he had to move fairly fast. He couldn't sit there and think like Nordibek could. He should have used this knight instead of this one. It happened, and now he will exchange the rook. He will get rid of the rook, and the bishop will take the rook. And now h6. 6, getting rid of the knight, and the knight comes to the wrong square, comes to f3. There's a double question mark. Apparently that's a blunder. Knight is going to take b4, attacking the queen. Yeah. So you can't technically afford to exchange at this point simply because of the power of the bishop coming in with the queen hitting you with check. If you do take, and the rook is going to be able to come in too. So rather than that, he went to c1. Again, he doesn't have a lot of time. He's only got just a couple of seconds to make his moves. Considering his time constraints, Parham is doing exceptionally excellent. And now queen a5. And he's going to set it up so that he has a discovered attack on the king, which is really cool because now he has a chance to win the queen, coming over here to a2 with the knight check to the king. So this is dangerous. So what you have to do, you're forced. You just have to get out of there. You no longer can surround yourself with your pieces to protect you. The king must flee. You got to scram. You got to scram and scramble. And now look at this. Now that d-pawn has been on his very home row this whole time. He's been unable to move because of this bishop that's been blockading him. And now he gets to be the hero. His lust to expand, as Aaron Nimzovich used to say. Blam, hitting the central knight. That's a fantastic move. That is absolutely correct. Knight comes back to d2. h5. Ooh. Remember, he's still got about 6 minutes. He's only got seconds at this point. I think he was down to, at one point, he was down to 18 seconds here. He actually went down to having only 2 seconds, and he just about lost on time. That's how crunched he is for time. But now you're going to start losing material because the pawn can't take the pawn. The bishop will sweep in and take the bishop. So what you're stuck with is that pawn is going to do a pawn fork on your bishop and your knight. What do you do? It's getting dark. It's getting really, really dark for him. Oh, yeah, Parham has 18 seconds, I wrote down. So the king really does have to go. He has to bite the bullet. He knows he's going to lose material. He does. Takes the pawn. Notice how many pawns up. Notice also that he has been playing with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's been down a piece for half this game, and yet he's starting to win now. But he's got compensation because he's just about taken every single one of White's pawns. Isn't that amazing? That's really kind of an interesting situation. So king to f2, and then H will take the knight the correct direction. Knight comes to b3. You got to try to hit the queen. Queen simply goes home. Keep her safe. She's done her job. It's fine. Don't get involved in any dumb tactics that's going to make you lose your queen. You've got this guy on the ropes. Just keep winning material. I thought that was really interesting how he did this, how he played this. It's not what I would have done, so this is an eye-opener for me. Queen to d2, and I honestly don't know what I would have done. Keep taking material, absolutely. Just about got every one of his pawns, and this is the weaker player of the two. He played this absolutely sensationally and inspirationally. Take the bishop, fundamentally. Oh, sorry. And he took the bishop, and then he played that. Sorry, I played that out of sequence. And now the king takes e2. And then the queen takes c8. And at this point is where white resigned. Parham, the great fighting attacker, got beat with an interesting attack. So that was one of the more exciting games simply because in all of the games in this round three, and Naroditsky and Muksha was looking at all of them, trying to bounce back and forth between games, just trying to give as good a coverage as they could on how everyone was doing. Oh, and by the way, the world champion Ding Liren, he also won his game. Perhaps if I can find the time, I will. It wasn't really overly spectacular like this. This one went back and forth and back and forth. First it was white, then black got the edge, then white got the edge, then black came back roaring through. And it was just utterly spectacular. But by far of all the games, most of them were draws. This had the most spectacular brilliancy move. I don't know if that's going to be matched in the entire rest of this tournament. That move really electrifies us. So there is your Backyard Professor chess game. Woohoo! The tournament's going on all week. If you can get a chance, watch it. I'm off for Martin Luther King Day today, so I had a chance to watch it and present to you the very best game so far today. And I don't know how much I will have for the rest of this week, but I'm going to try to keep my eyes peeled. Exciting days in chess. So thanks for watching. Appreciate your support. Appreciate all your attendance. I appreciate your friendship. We're having fun. We're doing good. We're learning, and we're enjoying great chess. So I will catch you soon with another chess video.